uh, what really causes heart attacks, and you'll be surprised that there were a lot of indicators before, and now the people have come closer and science has come closer to finding out why exactly heart attacks start to form and why all these problems occur. So stick on. Now, of course, we know that heart attacks are caused by blocked blood flow to the heart. Okay. So the coronary arteries, they start building up blockages. And funny, what happens is not enough blood that's supplied to the heart, and the heart starves of oxygen and nutrients. And finally, it just ceases to beat anymore, and you get a heart attack. Now, a lot of people might confuse a heart attack with a cardiac arrest. Now, cardiac arrest is not caused by the same reasons as a heart attack. What happens is that the heart cells have an impulse. They have a kind of electrical signal that gives them the timing. And sometimes what happens, that breaks down and the heart doesn't have a timing. So you'll get kind of an irregular heartbeat. And finally, sometimes maybe the heart might just stop beating. So they're quite different and they're caused by quite different reasons. So I'm just covering the heart attacks part of it. Okay. So the other factors that actually cause this is the plaque that builds up in the blood circulatory system, or you get an embolism. Now, an embolism could be probably a clot that's quite big, might have come from an accident, made of caused by some kind of body immune system reaction, and that can, block the artery. Okay. But the plaque buildup is probably one of the most common things that have been happening in the world today. Now, the plaque that builds up is mostly caused by a combination of items. Okay. And it's not just one. They kind of use the culprit to say, oh, your cholesterol is too high. It's only one part of it. The biggest culprit is the high blood calcium. Now, at times there is calcium. Calcium will definitely get into your bloodstream when you eat foods that have calcium in them. And it, of course, gets transported and it finds its right place. But sometimes what happens is if there is too much of blood calcium and it's not got removed from the circulatory system by the bodily functions, at times what happens, infections can leak through your gut and they can leak through your gums, or you may get it from a cut. They will enter your bloodstream. And sometimes what they do is they harbor themselves on these pieces of calcium or this calcium that's floating around in the blood. And they're nice islands for them. And they kind of sit and stay on that. And they start to break down that calcium, and they cause things to it. Now, this will also mix with the cholesterol that you have that might be hanging around in your blood. And together they form a very sticky, gooey substance that starts to get onto the walls of the arteries. Now, this is one of the biggest ones that cause the plaque. Okay. There are other things that can happen, but this is one of the biggest guys. Sometimes what happens if you don't have, thyroid is not functioning properly, or you might have a genetic condition where you're not able to convert the calcium and get it into the bones or get it disposed from the system. So, well, that's also very minor. I mean, they don't form a majority of it, the high risk groups, but definitely this is something that people have found. And today, right now, what has become the big fad word in the testing is what is your calcium score? Okay. So it's good to go and get a calcium score and find out, which will tell you how much of free calcium is floating around in your blood. And once you've identified that, then you can find ways to bring it down. Okay. So you can see, what happens in, the calcification. Okay. You can see the kind of diagram over here. And sometimes that plaque will also rupture, it becomes bigger, start blocking more areas. As you can see, uh, once it starts to accumulate, uh, it's an issue. So if it's already accumulated, then there are a couple of things that you can do. One is you can find natural means of removing it. And that's in a previous video that I've released earlier as to how you can remove this plaque from your veins. And suggestions are, of course, will come again in the next few slides. But this is how it is. So your defense, kabam! How am I going to fight this off? Remember to get a lot of vitamin K in your diet. Okay, and a whole lot of foods out there. You can definitely go and Google it. But you can get vitamin K from fermented cabbage and a lot of other foods. And of course, it's produced by a bacteria in your gut. But more importantly, you also need vitamin D. And vitamin D is extremely important, not just for the bones and adoption of calcium, but it's also important for getting protein into your muscles. So vitamin D is kind of essential. And you definitely get it in the setting sun with the infrared. So make sure you bask yourself in some setting sun. And if not, take some doctor's advice and get a prescription for vitamin D. Try and find if you, and you can always get tested to know how much of vitamin D you really need. And typically, a body needs about 10,000 IUs of vitamin D a day. So you do get it from a lot of foods. If you're somebody who's lactose intolerant and stuff like that, you may not be able to get sufficient amount of vitamin D. And if you're not somebody who steps out in the sun very often, especially the evening sun, then you've got to look at an alternate to find out how you can get more vitamin D through your diet and through a supplement. Soluble fibers are extremely important in your diet. So you've got things like oats, you've got things like fleeced husk, or they call that isabgol, sweet potato. There are quite a couple of things that you must have in your diet so that you get enough fiber. You get fibers from grains as well. So having a good amount of fiber in your diet will help you solve a lot of these problems. Okay, keeps your cholesterol down, etc., etc. Gives good gut health. So having more soluble fiber is very conducive to having better gut health. Okay, and most importantly, avoid deep fried carbs. The French fries and all that. That stuff that's deep fried in some seed oil. Okay, one of the most dangerous things because they form a kind of a gluey, icky kind of substance that finally winds up in the wrong place in your body. Okay, so as much as possible, especially French fries is something I'd say, if you ever get a chance to throw that in the basket, please do that and avoid it completely because it's not safe. You can definitely eat a boiled potato; it's far more safer than that, right? And if you want to eat another snack, you can have boiled peanuts. It's also great. Eat nuts, um, especially almonds, walnuts, pistas. These are some very healthy snacks that you can have. You can definitely have uh, braised vegetables if you like. That's fine. Any good, if you're non-vegetarian, eggs are always a good option out. A boiled egg is probably the safest you can get because there won't be any other oils or added stuff to it. But if you can't get too far with that, then probably a scrambled or even a fried poached eggs are great. Okay. So, for those of you who are following the dynamic vitality model, you already have an idea as to what kind of foods, that are suggested for you to have. Okay. Get a lot of exercise. I mean, whatever you do, don't be, sedentary too much because uh, exercise also helps your circulatory system. And if your circulatory system is just being too stagnant or you're sitting for too long, there can be an unavoidable accumulation in some parts. And probably you know what happens then after that. You get build up a better chance of build up a plaque in the areas that don't move. So get some kind of exercise. Walking, swimming is ideal if you can. Um, do exercises that defy gravity, like skipping, jumping, even climbing upstairs. As long as there is a little more stress on the body, it's a good exercise to do. I'm just not saying don't go overboard. I mean, don't go try climbing Mount Himalayas tomorrow. Don't do that. Okay. You can try climbing up your stairs instead of using the lift. If it's one or two floors that you like to climb, just do it. It's still a great form of exercise and you're defying gravity. If you can skip, if you can do hopping, if you can do, some kind of pull-ups, push-ups, all these things help. But try and be varied in your exercise so that you get movement all over. Even stretching exercises are great. And that doesn't really help, go for a dance class. Try salsa or try some, kind of a quick kind of step dance, jiving. This all helps. Okay. It's still kind of an exercise and it's good for the mind and it's a enjoyable thing to do. And definitely try to avoid stress. Uh, Now, sometimes you can't avoid stress because, yeah, you suddenly get into emergency. But when I say avoid stress, if you have to work and finish a project, set yourself sometimes saying, I'm going to work on this 4 hours. I'm not going to work for it, 14 hours. We start stretching yourself that way on your work and things that you do, you're going to start putting stress on yourself. And sorry, evading sleep, sleep, going into your sleep hours and robbing yourself of sleep is also another kind of stress. So you want to kind of avoid situations as far as possible. Don't push yourself into a stressful situation. Yes, sometimes there's going to be problems. Sometimes there's going to be a fat lot of traffic, and you'd be getting late, or I've got to catch my flight and the traffic is jammed, and, you know, it can happen. But I'm saying with what is within your control, especially when you're trying to do a project or you're trying to do something, uh, don't push yourself too far because that's a stress that you can control. Just take a break from it. If you have something urgent to do, yeah, but just don't sit at it, stretch, get your mind off, think about something happy, look, read a few jokes, try and find a way so that you can just reduce your stress. So, I mean, everyone will tell you about it. It's easier said than done. Uh, but definitely, there's something else. You have understood some of the fundamentals here about this and why this calcium score is becoming now a huge talk in the market, in the workplace, everywhere is calcium scores. And this can be a detrimental factor into probably your heart health. So, thank you, and hope this was a good topic for you. And I'll see you in the next session.